observatories were founded at Paris, London, and Berlin for the express purpose of determining longitude by the heavens. Meanwhile, lesser minds devised schemes that depended on the yelps of wounded dogs or the cannon blasts of signal ships strategically anchored somehow on the open ocean. In the course of their struggle to find longitude, scientists struck upon other discoveries that changed their view of the universe. These include the first accurate determinations of the weight of the Earth, the distance to the stars, and the speed of light. As time passed and no method proved successful, the search for a solution to the longitude problem assumed legendary proportions, on a par with discovering the fountain of youth, the secret of perpetual motion, or the formula for transforming lead into gold. The governments of the great maritime nations, including Spain, the Netherlands, and certain city-states of Italy, periodically roiled the fervor by offering jackpot purses for a workable method. The British Parliament, in its famed Longitude Act of 1714, set the highest bounty of all, naming a prize equal to a king's ransom, several $1 million in today's currency, for a practicable and useful means of determining longitude.
One of the things, and you can write this down really quickly at 2A, it's already one of the major messages of this essay, is how we take for granted, I mentioned your cell phone to find out what time it is, right? How we take for granted so easily when you study history, it's like, whoa, this kind of stuff had to be invented. So what your author is trying to do now is help you to get a sense of how something so easy today, it was not easy for a long time. You had people who were trying to figure it out, but they never could quite figure out this concept of longitude. All right, let's go to work with it.
English clockmaker John Harrison, a mechanical genius who pioneered the science of portable precision timekeeping, devoted his life to this quest.
John Harrison.
He accomplished what Newton had feared was impossible. He invented a clock that would carry the true time from the home port like an eternal flame to any remote corner of the world. Harrison, a man of simple birth and high intelligence, crossed swords with the leading lights of his day. He made a special enemy of the Reverend Neville Maskelyne, the fifth Astronomer Royal, who contested his claim to the coveted prize money and whose tactics at certain junctures can only be described as foul play.
Hey, do you see that line that you just read? I just want to pause to make sure you get it. Do you see that line? And this is what good readers do, by the way. When they read a line like this, they got to make sure they understand it. Read it with me on 481. Harrison, a man of simple birth and high intelligence, crossed swords with the leading lights of his day. I'm sorry, jot down at level 1. What does crossed swords mean to you? What does that mean to you, crossed swords with the leading lights of his day? Does that mean he went out with a lightsaber and started swinging at the light from the lamp? No, no, no. This is a figurative line that means he competed with, crossed swords means competed with. The leading lights means the most intelligent people of his day who were scientific. That's all that means. In other words, Harrison had to figure out a question that even the brightest people, like Newton even, struggled to try to understand. And to that degree, we owe him a great thank you, right?
With no formal education or apprenticeship to any watchmaker, Harrison nevertheless constructed a series of virtually friction-free clocks that required no lubrication and no cleaning, that were made from materials impervious to rust, and that kept their moving parts perfectly balanced in relation to one another, regardless of how the world pitched or tossed about them. He did away with the pendulum, and he combined different metals inside his works in such a way that when one component expanded or contracted with changes in temperature, the other counteracted the change and kept the clock's rate constant.
482.
His every success, however, was parried by members of the scientific elite, who distrusted Harrison's magic box. The commissioners charged with awarding the Longitude Prize, Neville Maskelyne among them, changed the contest rules whenever they saw fit, so as to favor the chances of astronomers over the likes of Harrison and his fellow mechanics. But the utility and accuracy of Harrison's approach triumphed in the end. his followers shepherded Harrison's intricate, exquisite invention through the design modifications that enabled it to be mass-produced and enjoy wide use. An aged, exhausted Harrison, taken under the wing of King George III, ultimately claimed his rightful monetary reward in 1773, after 40 struggling years of political intrigue, international warfare, academic backbiting, scientific revolution, and economic upheaval. All these threads and more entwine in the lines of longitude. To unravel them now, to retrace their story in an age when a network of orbiting satellites can nail down a ship's position within a few feet in just a moment or two, is to see the globe anew.
And of course today, right, we have the ability to use imaging from satellites. Through your phone you can do this, right? And you can pretty much see almost any place on the planet today in real time, which is really just mind-blowing. Hey, let's finish by making an observation at level 1. Notice this turns into kind of a tribute piece, doesn't it, to George Harrison, to John Harrison, who, of course, she will say, after 40 years of work, finally he was awarded the prize, finally given credit for something he does. That's so important. So what Sobel is trying to suggest for us, obviously, is, let's jump to 2A, major messages, themes, that the accomplishments that we take for granted happened over time and in history by really important individuals. By the way, did you notice that there was that debate between the astronomers and the mechanics, that is to say, those who were involved in more like the physics of all of this? There's always been this tension within the academic world about who gets to make discoveries. In the history of the world, often discoveries are made, though, not by the highly educated or the ones that are involved in some kind of specific domain of knowledge, but from somebody way outside. We have an example here as well. Okay. Another major 3A message here is that we often have to find, and it takes a long time to find it, solutions to overcome or to control nature in some way. As Francis Bacon will have said, knowledge is power, and the idea is that once you can control certain elements of nature, then you have the capacity to do great deeds, right? Of course, at 2B, write it down really quickly, at 2B, this is a work of exposition where, of course, Sobel is kind of introducing you. Again, this is from a book, so some of you will want to go and maybe finish reading the book. Sobel will introduce to you the very idea about what we take for granted in notions of longitude was in fact, kind of had to be discovered, had to be understood. And, of course, the creation of the clock that could allow us to do it. At 3A, what is for you the text that celebrates a remarkable accomplishment, especially in the area of science? Is there a film like that you enjoy? Somebody who, for example, makes a great insight and then is maybe made fun of because of that insight as well, ridiculed, made fun of, and the like. I just mentioned Francis Bacon, so go ahead and put his name down. When we're seniors, we will study again this great thinker, Francis Bacon. We'll look at his classic essay, Of Studies. Of course, let's now jump to 3B. Of course, one of the things that will be asked here is, what do you take for granted now? Like, to what degree do you take the technologies that you enjoy for granted? And think about how little you know about the inventors of all of that, the ones who gave us all of that, those great discoverers. To what degree do you dream of maybe someday yourself being one of those great discoverers? Well, there you go, the introduction to Longitude. Thank you.